Hello, everyone. It's M. Teresa Lawrence, and I'm here with Summers White, a legend in many ways. I want to share with you both that we both went to Amherst College, which is interesting, but not at the same time. Summers went when it was entirely an all-boys school, but we'll get to that later. I want Summers to share with us your journey. Like, where did it all begin? Where were you born? What was your family like? And let's share your background before we do anything else.
I was born in Sterling, Kansas, and I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I had terrific parents. They were just wonderful. My mother, when I was a sophomore, or rather a second year in grade school, had an ectopic pregnancy. And it looked like she was going to die. And so they were giving the last rites of the church. And my father knelt down and made a vow. He said, if you let my wife live, and that's your way, I will say a prayer of thanksgiving every night as long as she lives. And so every night as a boy, I saw my father kneel down and say that prayer of thanksgiving. And that bonding that it creates with the feeling of the good Lord and with the family.
And gratitude. What an incredible story. I understand that the reason behind the prayer of gratitude was a life at risk situation, but what a gift.
Well, no, it's anybody can give a gift or promises. Like I say about politics, the 3 P's of politics are promises, promises, promises. What I saw was keeping your word. Your word is your bond.
Well, speaking of that, I want to talk about what I do with the Trueness Project, and one of the books that we distribute is the 4 Agreements. And the 4 Agreements talks, one of the principles is always keep your word. And if you don't keep your word to yourself, that's the first word, how are you going to keep it to other people? And the example that your dad showed you was keeping his word.
All relationships are based on trust, and you have to trust that the person's word is everything.
Oh, that's fabulous. Can you imagine a world where you actually kept your word? I know that sounds silly, and all contracts are based on that, but really, people break contracts all the time, and they break their word all the time. And I think that's where we get into mischief and trouble, because I would like to create a world, and I believe I am creating a world where young people are learning to keep their words to themselves, are going beyond judgment, and living a life of authenticity. Which brings me back to your life and living in authenticity. What a wild life you have had.
Well, let's put it this way. It started out with, I've only told 2 lies in my life, and those were to my mother, which were quickly exposed. And those are the only lies I've ever, so my word is my bond.
Oh, that's fabulous. So now I want to talk about your education, because we share that bond of having gone to Amherst College.
Well, there's a bond that's before that, and that was my going to the Jesuit High School in Milwaukee, where they were all men of superior character and superior intellect. So I was educated by the Jesuits, and it was wonderful. It made me strong inside.
So I have to share with you that my dad also went to a Jesuit high school. Very interesting. This day has been a very interesting day. The parallels are very fascinating. So you went to high school there.
And then I applied. My father took me down to the library because we didn't have all the things we've got today. And we looked through all the colleges, and there weren't as many as there are today. And it boiled it down to 30. We wrote for the catalogs for all of them.
30 is a lot. Oh no, this is interesting. They don't even know what a catalog is.
Okay. So we got the catalogs, and it came down to 2 schools. One was Amherst and one was Williams. And strangely enough, I received a telegram. Nobody knows what that is.
Nobody knows what a telegram is now.
From the dean of Williams, who said, you will undoubtedly be accepted at Amherst, but if not, contact me immediately. And so then I received the wire from Amherst that I was accepted, so I accepted it both. And the reason that I went to Amherst was because I met someone who had gone to Williams, and he said if I had a son, I would send him to Williams. But Summers, money counts so much more at Williams than it does at Amherst.
That's That's an interesting statement.
And so anyway, I went to Amherst. I was a green pea, and had not been beyond the Hudson River, and it was a wonderful, wonderful 4 years.
I also went to Amherst, but when you went to Amherst, it was an all-boys school.
That is correct.
And share with me, because I'm going to share this with the Amherst community. Did you change dorms each year?
No. What happened was, when I went there, they had what they called 100% rushing. That meant that any boy who wanted to go to a fraternity could be taken into a fraternity. And at the end, we'll say that the oddballs, we want to call them, and the least likely, did get into fraternities, because each fraternity was committed to take
100% of the class.
so that it worked out to 100% of the class. Now, some wanted to be at the Lord Jeffrey Amherst Club. That was fine, but they didn't join a fraternity. And so everything was based around that fraternity life. Before World War II and so on, they ate in the homes of the fraternities. Then Valentine's Hall was set up, and we all ate at the same place, and you got to know everybody. Like, one of the people I got to know was Tom Gibbs, who was in the next fraternity, because he was the first person of color ever to be taken into a fraternity in the United States.
Wow. So for those of you who don't know what Valentine Hall is, it is the dining hall at Amherst College. I worked there 2 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week, and it was a different experience. But going back, so he's the first black man accepted into a fraternity in the United States. That is wild. Can you share with me, what were your favorite courses at Amherst? Because you have an interesting work trajectory, one that did you know you were going to be a speaker? And I imagine you didn't. So let's go back to, what were your favorite courses?
My favorite course was public speaking, and I actually had a job recording each member of the class at different years. They were going to give a speech so they could have a recording of what they sounded like. So I got the chance to see numerous people speaking, and the professor was terrific, and I took a second course from him. And from him, I learned about the talk that had been given the most times in the English language. And
what is that?
Acres of Diamonds. And it's the best example of word pictures and talking in word pictures. And his words of wisdom fell on deaf ears for just about everybody, because they didn't look at speaking as a deal, but I was struck by it. And so I learned so much from them. And then the professor that was most interesting was Professor Ziegler, who was reported that he had the highest ratings at Harvard and Harvard Law School, and then got his PhD and came to Amherst. And when somebody would come up to give their card that they were checking in, he said, no, don't give me that. He said, you may be embarrassed about getting the card when you hear what the class is like, and you won't want to do anything. And so he ran a terrific, he was a very liberal oriented, but open to all ideas, and his course was that. And I had another professor who was in the whole field of writing and so on. And so one of the things I had was, every professor was there every time, every meeting, except one time the professor said, I'm going to have a guest for the next meeting, and we're going to turn it over to him. And that guest was Robert Frost. And
the Frost Library.
And the Frost.
But you didn't have a Frost Library then?
No, we didn't have. We had, everything was named Pratt, because the Pratt family made their money with the Rockefellers. And so you had Pratt Hall, Pratt this, and so on.
Yes, and there was okay, so for those of you listening, the Robert Frost Library is phenomenal. I used to study there while I was there. I used to read the poetry while I was there, and when everyone says, well, two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled, and it made all the difference. Whenever somebody asks that as a question, I'm the first one, I'm like, Robert Frost!
Well, also remember, I was at Amherst, and we had the two girls' schools close by. One was Smith and one was Mount Holyoke. The joke was, you go to Smith for a good time,
and you go to Holyoke for a wife.
For a wife.
But it didn't make any difference, and so those were two schools that were close by, and so there was lots of dating. And then people would come from other colleges, maybe Dartmouth or wherever, and they would come down to Amherst and want to stay in your fraternity and share a couch so that they could date a girl at Mount Holyoke or Smith.
No, that's a beautiful story. When I was at Amherst, that philosophy still continued, but what was interesting, when you go to these schools, especially Amherst, I don't know if it was true at your time, but we were allowed to take courses at Smith and at Holyoke and at the University of Massachusetts. And so I took children's literature from, I forgot her name, but she wrote the book Sarah Plain and Tall, and that became, I guess, an award-winning movie. And it was a fabulous experience learning children's literature from this woman at Smith College, because they didn't have that course at Amherst. Ooh, there's my belly. I did write a children's book, as you all know, and I give it away everywhere, but it was...
Your thoughts bring two thoughts to me. One, things were done in an understated way. For example, I roomed with two seniors in my junior year, and one of them was John Dickinson. And so John was a doctor. He had gone to prep school where many had gone to who came on to Amherst. Well, later on I found out that who was a famous poetess at Amherst? It was Emily Dickinson. And
yeah.
so his family had the connection with Amherst, but that was never mentioned at all. And so there were things that were wonderful, they were not mentioned, and they were handled so beautifully in such a way. And the fraternity experience was a wonderful one, where they helped each other, etc.
When I was there, the fraternities were gone. And so I never experienced that, but I did experience the Emily Dickinson House. It's now, and it might be on the historical register, but it's beautiful to go and visit and to see the poetry that she wrote, and it's just a beautiful story. And I remember, I don't know if they had it when you were there. When I was there, they had a natural history museum.
They did not.
They did not? Oh, you missed something good. Since you left, they did a goodness, and I don't know if they've expanded it, but I worked there too, and it was the best job ever. They had these huge fish tanks that I got to feed. I got to play with all the animals. They had a mammoth in the front. It was.
Look, this was an all-male college. This was like heaven, because there were 4-to-1 ratio between women to men.
Oh, because of the other schools.
So that was it. Those were the animals. We were all male animals. But the history was there, like Lord Jeffrey Amherst. Well, he had been a member of the fraternity, so there was his original song sheet that he had prepared to write the song. All kinds of wonderful history and so on. And what the place was like is, if you ever see the movie Goodbye Mr. Chips, it was the generations were there whose father had been there beforehand and so on, and it was wonderful.
Okay, so we're going to transition from Amherst to your next gig. Where did you go after Amherst?
What happened was that I wanted to get the right job, and I wanted to be in the banking business and so on. And so I did tremendous research. The Chase Bank did not come to Amherst to interview. And so what I did was I determined the Chase Bank had the best management program there was. So I applied and I was accepted, and there were people from maybe 20 other schools that were on this executive program. It was a future management of the bank, and then we had 20 people who had been with the bank 20 years. So I got on that program, and I was there for a month, and the next thing I knew, I'm there at dinner with David Rockefeller,
Wow.
who was the executive vice president, and all the others connected with the bank who were at the top echelon. It was wonderful. The next day I'm at David Rockefeller's office, and I spend a day there with his secretary finding out how he handles his correspondence, who he does this, and he had 2 Rolodex of cards that were like this
Okay,
big.
you guys don't remember what a Rolodex is, but people used to write their names and addresses on cards, and and there was these rotating things that you just looked
Right,
for people's
but
names.
you never see anything like it. They were huge. That was how many people in, and you would see what they did or how they wrote thank you notes and so on. So that was a learning, and everything was going wonderful. And then I got a card and it said, "You've been drafted." And so I went to Korea and spent 2 years as a private in the infantry. I never slept in a bed, and I never had an inside toilet. So it was a nice learning experience. I returned from there, got married, came back to my job, and then I decided that I wanted to do something different, something that would project me ahead. And so I went to the Harvard Business School, and that was a very nice experience. They had clubs there that you could belong to. The largest was the marketing club. The second largest was the finance club. And so I was president of the marketing club, and they said, you can't be president of the finance club too. So they made me the vice president. And then spreading my wings, they started a new club that had to do with public service and so on and so forth.
So you joined that one too?
I came and I said, listen, you make me the vice president and I'll show you how this club situation does. And so I had a business of signs and so on and made money that way.
Okay, so before you continue, please share with the audience what you are known as. What is your nickname?
My nickname is 3 different organizations that I belong to, but this happened later. It's Mr. Dynamite.
And he is Mr. Dynamite. 3 clubs. It's so difficult to be part of one club and to be the president of one club. He was in
This was after college. This was
No,
after
no, I know,
This
but
is
I'm
business
I'm
club.
just saying there's a reason you're called Mr. Dynamite. So, what happened after Harvard?
After Harvard,
So let me just share. I'm getting to the point that Summers is, or was, he may continue to be, one of the highest paid public speakers.
well, that came later.
That came later. Okay,
Okay.
so it's just amazing. I just saw all of the places that he had spoken. He goes, they all paid me, and I'm going, okay. So you
what
graduate
happened?
Harvard.
So then I decided that, gee, I wanted to go where there was opportunity. And I decided that was Arizona. I thought about maybe going to Hong Kong or going to Paris or different
And
kinds.
what year was that?
This was in 1959. And so then I got out of Harvard Business School. And so I came to Arizona. It was a wonderful opportunity, but then the people didn't keep me their promises. So I thought, I'm getting out of this place. I don't want it. If a person can't keep their word, they're not going to keep it down the line. And as a result, there was a new bank starting, and I was going to be in charge of the credit department. That is where you analyze financial statements, which I'd learned at Chase, to decide who should get loans or shouldn't get loans and what the details were. And then I heard, I'd been there a week, that the person who was going to have new business was going to get an expense account. An expense account. I could take people. I could take people to lunch. I could give them a gift, and so on and so forth.
So you took
And I
that-
heard that that person was going to get a job in the best, not a membership in the Paradise Valley Country Club. I went to the president and I said, I want to head new business. He said, you can't. I said, why not? He said, because I won't have anybody to run the credit department. I said, the first rule of all nature is to replace itself. So I already have my replacement, even though I've been here a week. His name is Dick Thomas. He's a better credit man than I am, and I'll have him here tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. And the president said, well, all right, I'll let you talk to the board of directors. So now, at this point, since I graduated from college, I had never dealt face-to-face with a client. I'd all been in the back room. And so I got up and gave this presentation to the board of directors. One of them jumped up, who was the most knowledgeable at marketing, and said, this is the guy, this is the guy. And so I was put in charge of new marketing, and I didn't know my head from a hole in the ground. And so what happened was, there were opportunities that were there, but people say, well, we tried that, we didn't do that. And so we had a fantastic increase and set some national records. And so one of my friends, Sandy Gadian, came to me, and he had this ad he had cut out a week before about a new bank which was going to start in Seattle, and they were looking for bank officers. So I wrote to them, and they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'll let you know about that, and so on. So I went for the interview, and you've seen the book where it's written up,
Yes.
and how many, there were 500 and whatever
There were 500 applicants.
applicants and so on, and everyone of those applicants was 20 years older than I was and had 20 years more experience. However, I gave a presentation which blew them away, and as a result, I was hired at that time and became the youngest bank president in America for any bank located in the major metropolitan center without nepotism. No rich wife, no rich family, or anything like that. So I did it all on my own. And then
That's incredible.
what
Well,
happened
not
was,
incredible. It's
well, it's what I say, you can put a man on a horse, but then he's got to ride the horse.
right.
And so what I did was do unusual things at the bank, and that had never been done before. And IBM did something they'd never done before. They developed a brochure about me and the bank. And the only thing they had was one little place where it said IBM on it.
I saw that for sure. It is beautiful. It's really well laid out. And in terms of marketing and promotion, I think it served two purposes. It promoted the bank flawlessly. It promoted IBM because they're on the logo, and it promoted you.
Right, but it was not just getting on the horse as being able to. So I did things that had never been done before in the 4,000-year history of banking. And then at that point, I thought, what can I do for an encore? Well, and so I decided to come back to Phoenix. I came back to Phoenix, and it was really tough because I was going to be a management consultant. I never met a management consultant. And so I wrote 6,666 letters and got nice things said back to me, but it didn't do any good. So I thought, I'm running out of money. At this point, I got a wife and 2 children. What am I going to do? Well, I thought I'll give a paid speech and get paid for it because I need the money, and maybe I'll get clients out of that. Well, I gave that one paid speech and turned into 3,000 paid speeches in all 50 states and 6 continents. I got clients and traveled the world, or as I made the joke, I was in the business of going around and picking up checks and saying a few words of thanks and appreciation. So I got some of the largest companies in the world, and you saw some of those that were named off.
I saw the list, but what was more important, I read the thank you letters. I've never read thank you letters like this. They loved his speeches, and he sent me one of his speeches, and it was just, you want to be in the audience when this man is speaking.
Oh, that's where it was a video I sent you,
Yeah,
only about
yeah.
4 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's all I needed. It was spectacular, and what, for me, people that go up there and public speak, it's really powerful because the people that are watching this, they know me. They know that I was really scared to speak in public, and when I went to Africa on my speaking tour, I'd never spoken before, and I was shaking, and then it got easier because I was on a speaking tour. We had to go speak in front of thousands of people. I got better at it as I went along, but it was never in my plan to be a public speaker until I had a vision and a purpose and something that I'm going to get done, hell or high water, and I needed the skill, right? But what you're describing is there was a need in that moment. You stepped up, and look what happened.
Well, first of all, we have to say that the number 6 fear in America is of dying. The number 1 fear is getting up in front of an audience. So I developed individual clients that have been highly successful, that I showed them how to, the biggest problem, once you enter the professional speaking, that is in getting paid for it, is not giving the speeches. It's getting the is not giving the speeches, it's getting them. And I knew how to market, and so I had lots of speakers come to me that I consulted with, etc. And so my wonderful part of my life was taking long vacations for a couple of months at a time, going to exotic places, and so I've been all over the world and have had a terrific career and wonderful clients.
Share with the audience the awards that you've gotten. I'm
Well,
mostly
okay.
interested in one because of the person that came after you.
Actually, that person who came after me had worked for me, so I became.
You gotta share this story.
No, the youngest bank president in America, and then he left at the bank where I've been with, and then he became the youngest bank president in America. That one was over in the San Diego area. So I was the first person to hold 2 awards simultaneously. The highest award in professional speaking is the CPAE, which is the Speakers Hall of Fame, and then in management consulting, the highest award is the Fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants. I was the first person ever to hold those 2 designations, and one feeds off the other, because you see, when the downturn comes in a bad time, like COVID or something like that, what happens is they're not having the meeting. So then if you've got the base for clients, so I have 2 bases, the individual clients or companies, and then also giving speeches.
Okay, so who was the person who got the award after you did?
No, who started the bank. The first one was what that was, and it was the starting of the bank. His name was William Fowler Black, and so on, who since passed away.
No, I was thinking about Ronald Reagan.
Oh, no, that's something else you're talking about.
Okay, so share that one.
Okay. I was the first person named by Sharing Ideas magazine as a consummate professional speaker. The year after me, it was Ronald Reagan. The year after that was Margaret Thatcher. And the year after that, it was, who?
William.
No, it was William Buckley.
Yeah.
And so, no, I did receive those awards.
So that's an exclusive group to be a part of, I would say. So Summers, of all, and I have to share another thing, because I'm not going to move the camera around. I have been privy to such incredible art and the way it's curated. Summers has traveled all over the world, and he has exquisite art pieces, and every piece of art in this home has a story, and they're just fabulous, fabulous stories. And it's wonderful to be with somebody who has created and directed his life, making the impossible possible.
That's right, and I gave a number of speeches on that, helping people. And so everybody else, if they're a consultant, what they're doing is they're running up their bill so that they can become rich. My rich has come in a different way, which is I have people I've worked with, and then I've shown them, well, I've had 100 interns, and they've gone on to great heights. So I showed other people how to become millionaires. In other words, to go up and build a thing, rather than just trying to, getting rich, it was doing that other thing. So it was very rewarding to see what's happened to the different people who've been in contact with me.
No, just, it's very special to be in Summers' presence and to really learn from his wisdom. And so before we close out, do you have any final words for our audience?
Well, first, I have a sense of humor, and I love to be around people, and so they say, there's a Spanish proverb, living well is the best revenge, and the other joke about that is I don't have an enemy in the world, I've outlived all of them. and so my comment is that what happens is most people go up, and they hit a plateau. It can come at 30, it can come at 60, and then they kind of level off. It's like so on. And so the key is, what makes the difference? So what makes the difference of people at Amherst versus someplace else? And so this is the story. I have a professor who I became great friends with, who was an engineering professor at the Florida University, teaching PhD students and so on in engineering. And he had a sabbatical come, so they got a leave for paid leave for a semester. Most get write a book or take a vacation. Instead of that, he went to an Ivy League school to teach. He went, the 10 Ivy League schools, Dartmouth is one of those. And so at that school, he taught the same courses. I said, how much smarter were the people at the Ivy League school? And he said, they weren't any smart. I said, what was the difference? He said those people were all driven. And I've done a lot of work looking at driven and what makes people successful. And so the driven person is trying to make more effort than somebody else will make given the same situation. They're driven for excellence. They don't care about the public recognition or anything. It's that, boy, they have a conquest inside. The person they want to have is them. And so it's inside themselves. And so that's the payoff, and so I was going to say, if there's one thing for somebody looking from average or some man or woman, the key is, if you want to be successful, be willing to make the effort that other people are not willing to make. An example of that is one of my clients who was selected by the world's richest man, Adnan Khashoggi, and what he did was he was the physician that did all of Khashoggi's proteges and so on, and he became my client and my paying client. And what he did when I worked with him was he was willing to make the extra effort. So in other words, if there was something that the person was taking that was on the atomic table, maybe they were going after that, but it was actually the item that was on the previous or the other side that they should be giving them. And so for medicine, it's the same thing. The person who's willing to make the extra effort. And I thank you for all the extra effort you made, and I have to give you the compliment that I've never given anyone before, and that is, you are the best listener I have ever come in contact with. And let me put it this way, when you go to a place, everybody else is telling you how great they are. I go to a meeting with one objective, to leave smarter than when I walk in the room. So that's my thought for you for Amherst, which was a wonderful experience for me, and this wonderful country we live in. I came from humble circumstances, and the future is yours. And it's been a great time to be alive. And now with the AI coming and so on, it's the time for you to go forward and go for your dream, but make that extra effort.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you, dear heart.
Thank you.